I'm used to coming down that hill, but not on these two wheels. Something that has a whole lot more speed and delivers a whole lot more excitement.
The pinnacle of motorcycle road racing is the 500cc World Championship. It's contested over a series of 12 races throughout the world, and the races draw crowds averaging over 100,000 each. It rivals Formula One motor racing in popularity and international television coverage. When most people see motorcycle racing, either at the track or on television, they know that the guy who comes in first wins the race. But there are a lot of other things even enthusiasts don't know about the bikes and how they're ridden. Have you ever wondered why the riders don't stay right in the saddle all the time? Or why the tires don't have any tread? Did you know riders can make up to 1,000 gear shifts in one race? And although you've seen the bikes racing across your TV screen, have you ever wondered how fast they really are? Sure, you know they're quick, but believe me, they're so quick, the average person couldn't even imagine it. To show you how quick a racing motorcycle is, we're going to compare Freddie Spencer's 1984 Racing 500 bike around one lap of California's Laguna Seca Raceway with a street bike and a street car. The car is a Nissan 300ZX Turbo with 200 horsepower. It accelerates to 60 miles per hour in 7 seconds. The street bike is a 700 Honda Sabre, and it hits 60 in 4 seconds. To make it more interesting, we're giving the street car and street bike a start. The driver of the car is Jacques Couture, chief instructor of a racing school at this track, so he knows every inch of it. The street bike is being ridden by Sam McDonald, a former United States 250cc champion who's won many races here, and he's giving the car a 15-second start. Time for Freddie to put on his gloves. It's coming up to 30 seconds since the car left. Freddie has to catch the car and the bike before they cross the finish line, and the track is less than 2 miles long. The street bike is now catching the car very quickly. They're both about 2/3 of the way round the track, but the terrific grip and handling of the car means that it will hold off the bike until after the double corkscrew turn. The street bike finally powers past the car, 3 turns from the finish, but now Freddie is going through the corkscrew. Down this hill, the car will reach 90 miles an hour, but that won't stop Freddie's bike racing past it. And now there's only 1 turn left. Early motorcycle racing was very different from today's sport. In the 1920s, the races were run on public roads. Each lap was often as long as 20 miles, and some races lasted up to 5 hours.
The bikes nowadays handle better, but in turn they go faster, so that kind of evens it out. They had to deal with tires that were not near as good. So that's why the riding styles have changed. You notice in the older days, most of the riders stayed in the center of the machine because they really couldn't afford to move around very much. And they didn't lean over near as far as we do nowadays. And I think, you know, the racing has just changed.
By the early 1930s, the races had been shortened, and throughout this era, British bikes and riders won everything. But as the Second World War was approaching, the German bikes improved. And the very first European Championship in 1938 was won by a BMW. During the Second World War, the great continental factories were all but destroyed. After the war, it was the turn of the British bikes again. Not until 1950 did the Italians have a win. Their World Championship Gilera was pushing out about 55 horsepower, as much as a modern minicar. That was the end of British dominance. Italian bikes, either Gileras or MV Agustas, often with British riders like Jeff Duke or Mike Halewood, won every 500cc World Championship for the next 25 years. But by the early 60s, a new force had appeared on the scene. Japanese bikes were winning all the smaller capacity World Championships. And over the next 10 years, the Japanese bikes were to win 36 smaller capacity World Championships. But the big prize, the Grand Prix, the 500cc World Championship, had to wait until the mid-70s, when the brilliant Italian rider Giacomo Agostini won it on his Yamaha. Since then, Japanese bikes have won the championships every year, Suzuki virtually alternating with Yamaha, until Honda's sensational win with the young American Freddie Spencer in 1983. Incredible technical developments have taken place over the last 60 years. Now, the great power of modern racing motorcycles means that their frames have to stand tremendous forces in cornering and braking as the entire weight of the bike and rider are thrown onto the front section of the machine. But since the start of motorcycle racing, the basic layout of the principal components has hardly been altered. One of the greatest advances was the development of telescopic front forks, first seen in the late 30s. Inside these forks were a spring and also a damper to control the spring's bounce, a system we still have today. The next big advance was the so-called featherbed Norton of 1950, in which the rear wheel was suspended on forks linked near the bottom of the frame behind the engine, with vertical springs and dampers coming off the hub. This arrangement was so successful, it persisted well into the 60s, and today, many road bikes still have this layout. So let's look under the skin of a modern racing motorcycle. It was not until the 70s that the layout of the current bikes was set, when cantilever rear suspensions began to appear. With this system, the rear wheel's swing arm can be triangulated for strength, and a single spring and damper to control its bounce is fitted in the middle of the bike under the tank. Square tubes have also become fashionable. With special new alloys, they allow greater wall thickness and therefore strength along with lower weight. By the early 1980s, racing motorcycle engine design had largely stabilized. What you needed to win was a water-cooled four-cylinder, the maximum number allowed under the international rules, two-stroke, like this Yamaha. That is, until the debut of the Honda NS 500. This had a three-cylinder engine, and it helped Freddie Spencer in 1983 to become the youngest ever world champion at the age of 21. The three-cylinder, here ridden by Randy Mamola, was smaller and lighter than the fours, and so more maneuverable. But it wasn't more powerful. So for the 1984 season, Honda fell into line with other